Hey, how are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie, here with Team Riser Fall to talk some Monday Night Football. The Washington Commanders head to Philadelphia to take on the undefeated Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. So we shall see. It's always sunny in Philadelphia. We're going for an undefeated streak, however you want to spin this thing. It's going to be pretty much as we think it's going to go. Not lopsided, but yes, blowout in one direction, yes. But we're still going to go through this game because I think there is money to be made in DFS formats, maybe a little bit of betting action as well. Before I get into that, make sure you go to the website at Team Riser Fall. When you get there, you can use promo code Beastie, the Beastie Key, and you'll get $10 off your first month of premium services, and that includes a whole heck of a lot, including a voucher to Fantasy Cruncher that rolls over every week, and you can crunch as many lines as you can, what you have time for, and I'm talking everything, basketball, hockey, football, and we will go from there. It's an amazing time to join Team Riser Fall. Lots of little promo codes and the Discord, which is free. You get everything you need for free there, but with the VIP membership, if you use promo code Beastie, you'll get your hands on or your ears on some cool little short broadcasts leading up to each lock, basketball, football, hockey, all of that stuff. So be there. When you get there, tag me in the Discord. Say, hey, Chris, Beastie, I made it. Glad to be here. All right, let's talk about this football game. As I said, the Washington Commanders head to Philadelphia to take on the undefeated Eagles, the 8-0 Eagles. Kickoff is at 8:15 p.m. And as it stands right now, what can I say about Philadelphia that we don't already know? Yes, they're the only undefeated team in the league. They rank second in the league in scoring with 28.1 points per game. On Thursday, last time out, it was a sluggish start against Houston, but they wound up just hammering it home, 29-17, if I'm not mistaken. Eagles, 8-0, as I said, they outgained their last opponent, the Texans, 360 yards to 303. Not that crazy, in the lopsided scale, but the Eagles have what it takes. On the Washington side of things, they're unable to protect leads, and they're unable to protect Tyler Heineke, but I do love Tyler. He plays with reckless abandon, like his life depends on it, like there is no tomorrow. Right now, he's pretty solidified in as the starting quarterback for right now for the next handful of games, but we shall see. Let's talk about the quarterback, shall we? When we look at Tyler Heineke in Philadelphia, Philadelphia's defense is so good. They're second overall against opposing quarterbacks. It's going to make life a living hell for Tyler, however you want to put it. 15 grand on FanDuel. Looks like around 9K on DK. 23 completions, 230 yards, and a handful of carries, right? 4 or 5 carries for another 25 yards. And again, if you're going to play Washington Commanders, Tyler Heineke or their wide receivers, which I'll get to shortly, it's only for a, not contrarian, but it's only to realistically just pop your head out of the water, because a lot of folks are going to be stacking Philadelphia tonight, rightfully so. So on our end, if you're watching this video or you're playing DFS with the helper Team Riser Fall and the Fantasy Cruncher, you'll start to notice that Hurts and Gibson, B-Rob, those three guys right there, they're going in different directions, but they can still provide some value. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts. Washington 21st overall against opposing quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, 17.5 on FanDuel, massive, 12.2 on DK, 20 completions. I feel cool going 20 to 21, but it might be on the lighter side because I do think Philadelphia gets out quick, gets out fast, and then they're just going to hammer home those secondary guys, lower on the depth chart, like Boston Scott or Kenny Gainwell. But when you look at Hurts, 240, 250 passing yards, and we're looking at double-digit carries again for another 40 to 45 yards. He's the move tonight, captain DFS spots. But again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Do you want a little piece of the pie or do you want the whole pie? And as I've looked through the slate and I'm giving it to you now, normally I go, well, this team A is just unbelievably high as a favorite, right? And that they're going to win. They're going to hang a ton of points, but we have to get different if we want to win anything of note. And as it stands now, at the time I sat down to record this, I'm just not seeing it. I got a few ideas with the Washington wide receivers, the Washington tight ends. There's not much there. So to me, it 96% stacking Philadelphia, and the only difference is literally going to be one or two Washington Commanders, and I think I found one or two of those players. Let's talk about the running backs. Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson Jr. Which way are we going to go? I would use both of them in unison in my lines tonight. Philadelphia 16th overall against opposing running backs. Gibson 10K on FanDuel, 6.8 on DK. Brian Robinson Jr. He's hit a wall, but hey, he's a rookie. He was hurt not too long ago. Amazing recovery. And when you look at B. Rob Jr., 8.5 on FanDuel, 5.4 on DK. I have Gibson, 8 or 9 carries here in this one, 40 yards, around 5 receptions or 30 yards. I think the Gibson, reception yardage or betting slips, however you want to put it, I'm taking the over on all that Gibson stuff because, again, I could see a case where Washington is playing from behind. They're behind 14, 20 points, something like that, and B-Rob will be in there early on in this game. I'm not saying that Washington completely abandons B-Rob in the running game here, but Gibson is our chance to really, that's one of my tickets here. Whatever you stack Philadelphia, put in Gibson because I think him and Heineke are going to be playing pitch and catch, playing from behind here. B-Rob 12, 13 carries, 50 yards or so, and about 2 or 3 receptions for another 15 yards. When we look at the Philadelphia running backs here, it's a beautiful slate. It's a beautiful schedule for all 3 running backs, meaning Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and even Kenny Gainwell. Let's start with Miles Sanders. It looks as if the Washington's 15th overall against opposing running backs here. Miles Sanders is the lead back, the bell cow, however you want to put it. Thankfully, the new coaching regime has come in. I've used that narrative a few times. I mean, shoot, we're 10 weeks into the season. It can go away from that. But when you look at Miles Sanders, 13 grand on FanDuel, 9.8 on DK. Sanders just a healthy work, 16, 17 carries, 75 to 80 yards, and a reception or two for like another 10 yards. I do firmly believe that Miles Sanders will give way later in this game when it's kind of all said and done and it's sewn up, and he's going to lend some beautiful targets to the likes of Boston Scott or Kenny Gainwell. Let's talk about both of them briefly, and I have Scott and Gainwell highlighted in my notes in green. They make for good pivots, and I would put those two Philadelphia running backs together in unison with the likes of Antonio Gibson, and I think we're going to get a lot of late game action from all 3 guys. In late game, I mean the start of the second half or midway through the third quarter. Boston Scott, 7 grand on FanDuel, only $1,600 on DK. Kenny Gainwell, 8 grand on FanDuel, 4.6 on DK. I have Boston Scott, 2-3 carries, a reception or 2, and again, it's hard getting, or not putting a price tag, but it's hard putting a concrete workload for these guys. And I have Gainwell, 4 or 5 carries for about 20 yards, and a few receptions as well for another 10 to 15 yards. But what I was getting at is it's hard to put a concrete lockdown, even something I feel comfortable with in terms of receptions for Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. We know what Kenny Gainwell brings to the table. We know Boston Scott has that 2 to 3 touchdown upside at any given time. And I'm not saying that Gainwell or Boston Scott are going to score 2 or 3 touchdowns apiece, but it's there. So instead of just, hemming and hawing and being all upset and nervous in our stomach, just use both Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, and as I said, the run back will be Antonio Gibson. When we talk about the wide receivers, we know what the deal is, right? Terry McLaurin and A.J. Brown. But let's start with the Washington wide receivers briefly. Terry McLaurin, Samuel, Johan Dotson looks to be back. This kid started the season hot, and I think he's going to not pick up right where he left off because it's going to take some time to get up to speed and get into momentum, but I do think Dotson he checks back in today, and he does very well. I'm just checking my notes at the bottom here. Terry McLaurin, 12K on FanDuel, 8.2K on DK, and Philadelphia, 10th overall against opposing running backs. Terry, 8-9 targets, 5-6 receptions, 70-plus yards. He is kind of a must tonight in a game where, I've said it a million times, where Heineke just leaves it all on the field, life and limb, however you want to put it. And when we look at Curtis Samuel, 9 grand on DK, 6.6 on DraftKings. Samuel, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 40, maybe 45 yards, and a carry or 2 for an additional 15 to 20 yards. I could see a case in this one where Terry just goes, right? And you're just throwing it up to him. And then every once in a while in the second half, while Washington has the idea of, hey guys, we got to catch up here. I could see a case where Curtis Samuel gets loose for a couple carries here, right? Or just some sort of, dump off out of the flat, and Samuel goes 30, 40 yards on one play or two plays. I could see a thing here. Samuel eats up major chunk yardage here in the second half when they're down, when Terry's stretching the field. Will be right there in the middle, along with Johan Dotson, who is $8K on FanDuel, $5,000 on DK. Dotson, 6 targets. That's a little much, but I like the kid. And 3 receptions for another 40 yards or so. As we look at the Philadelphia wide receivers, AJ Brown, 14.5 on DraftKings, 10.6 on DK. You're looking at 10 or 11 targets for AJ Brown, 6 or 7 receptions, 90 to 100 yards. I don't want to say that's his floor, because at the end of this thing, he might finish with 110, 112. So to me, AJ Brown is without a doubt a must-have tonight. Not telling you anything you don't already know. And get this, Washington, 25th overall against opposing wide receivers. Going to be a field day for him and Jalen Hurts here. Devonta Smith, 11K on FanDuel, 8K on DK. Looking at Devonta, 7-8 targets, 4 receptions, and another 65 to 70 yards. Now we get into the point of this thing where I mentioned Scott and Gainwell. As you notice here, I love stacking secondary options from the Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody and their mother going to be on Hurts and AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert and even, Devonta Smith to a certain extent. But what if we run it back with Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, and the likes of Quez Watkins and Zach Pascal here? Quez is very, very reasonable. 6.5 on FanDuel, 4.2 on DK. Pascal, 7.5 on FanDuel, $1,400 on DK. In my notes, I have each guy for a target or two, a reception or two, and that's just playing it safe, right? Single game slate, I rarely play it safe, but for the sake of my notes, I know that when I broadcast or, get this video out to you, or we talk about it later in the day leading up to lock, I could kind of, fine tune this stuff or go off on a tangent here. So I do love Zach Pascal and Quez Watkins tonight to a certain extent late in the game. To be fair, I think it's a lot of Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell, but Quez and Pascal can do their thing later in this game. What if Jalen Hurts is put on the sideline for their, backup quarterback just because they're up? They're going to be 9-0. Why even tempt that? When we look at the tight ends, not much rolling here. Logan Thomas, Philadelphia, 15th overall against opposing tight ends. Logan, 4 or 5 targets, 2 to 3 receptions, 30 to 35 yards. And again, in a game where they're going to be peppering the football and targets and moving it all around to try to keep pace or keep up here, Logan Thomas is a nice, not a pivot because he is their starting tight end, but Logan Thomas makes for a nice little, backdoor kind of move in this one. As we go down, Goddard, I love Goddard, but Washington is very good. They're actually 2nd overall against defending opposing tight ends, but hey, it's one of those things. Goddard is 11.5 on FanDuel, looks to be 7.8 on DK. But when you look at Goddard here, if I'm saying all this stuff so far, 12 minutes into this thing, and I'm saying Philadelphia is going to, run away with this thing, they're going to hang 30 points or so, well, there's got to be a reason why that happened and who kind of caught all those passes here. Dallas Goedert is on that checklist of, if you're going to want this guy, might not see much of him in the fourth quarter because the score could get out of hand here, but he still will do all this damage in the first half. I have Goddard, 6-7 targets, 5 receptions, 55 to 60 yards. As we go down to the kickers, not much. There is such a good game script for both teams, right? Win or lose, there's a game script, a very good one in my eyes for both teams. Philadelphia gets up quick and they just foot on the gas, and then Washington has to kind of play from behind, and they're chucking up the football and they're moving the chains, later in this game if, Philadelphia brings in their second stringers or things like that here. So to me, the kickers, there's just too many other offensive skill positions that I absolutely love here. When we talk about the DSTs, you couldn't pay me to start Washington, but in a way, that's what makes me love Washington. I don't see them doing anything of note, a sack or two, and that's about it. I have Philadelphia to win this one, 31-14. Therefore, Eagles, their DST, makes for a nice move in a game and a slate where everybody is going to be on Jalen Hurts and the big three, Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, and A.J. Brown. Why can't we put in the Eagles DST or captain an MVP spot? They are 6-4 on DK. To me, it makes for a nice move. I have them for just a handful of sacks an interception, a fumble recovery. So to me, the Eagles very much in play in the MVP captain spot. But again, I'm not telling you anything secretive or something you don't already know. So as I said, I have the Philadelphia Eagles to win this one, 31-14. It goes just as we think it's going to go, but make sure you get the likes of Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, and you can mix and match Quez Watkins or Zach Pascal in unison to Antonio Gibson catching a ton of passes while they're catching up. Also Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, as I think he has a couple nice chunk yardage plays late in this game. Be good, be safe. Let's get together again Thursday night and we'll talk about that football game. But in the meantime, head to the site at Team Riser Fall. Use promo code BEASTIE. It'll unlock everything. It's like the Yellow Brick Road, Emerald City here. Be good, be safe. Philadelphia absolutely trucks Washington tonight, 31-14. Be good, be safe. Talk to you again soon. Bye.